So I wanted to share just my enthusiasm about creativity. It's called art class, but I feel like it's really called self-discovery through creativity. And big believer in creativity in every way. And what I believe and have experienced for teaching art for so many years is that kids, helping them get in touch with themselves. It's a lot of what it's about. Like, who are they? And that they get in touch with that creative spark within them. Just that vast world that lives inside of them instead of they're better at it than I am. So learning to live from in here rather than out there. And finding more joy and ultimately more self-confidence. And so I wanted to read some quotes that I found on the internet. These are from studies done in the last few years based on kids who've done art as opposed to not. Researchers have determined that students who received more arts education did better on standardized tests, improved their social skills, and were more motivated than those who had reduced or no access. Kids who took part in the program of art performed better on 6 different categories of literacy and critical thinking than those who did not. And those with greater arts participation were more likely to come to class, avoid being removed, and to graduate. And they also showed greater proficiency at math and communication. So, I think you all know that, but it's nice to have, some people really need statistics to believe it. And because art has been taken out of the mainstream public school quite a bit, all these studies are being done to show that it has a huge impact. If you're just doing math and all the main subjects and you don't have one place with complete permission, where are they going to feel? It really helps them have a place to be very safe to express who they are. So a lot of what I do is a little bit different in that I'm trying to help them, instead of trying to draw the tree perfectly, but we do all that too, like all of it's there. I'm trying to help them through different assignments I give, find that just the joy inside. And when they first have me for art, and they haven't had me before, it's, Carianne, do you like it? Do you like it? And that's the habit. They often go out here. Do you like it? And she's in 5th grade, and so I'm quickly trying to break the habit. And because you want to say, yeah, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want to be positive, but we also want to find that fine line of, are they doing it, to please me, to get approval, or are they doing it because of the joy of who they are and what they have to share? So I would come back and say, well, tell me about it. What's going on? And she'd tell me about it, and so I would just enter her world rather than yes, no. I try not to answer that question. And the trick of it too is if the other person doesn't hear it, then they're wondering why they didn't hear it, and it's just tricky. And so I wanted to share an example of, a scribble. I even did a scribble for you. So like when kids are really little and they do things like this, but they're pretty excited about it, and you're like, huh. I had zillions of these with my kids. But you say, do you like it? Do you like it? And you go, yeah, it's great, it's wonderful. But if you say, well, tell me about it. Oh yeah, well there's this cat, there's on a tree, and there's this train, and it's going uphill, and then it got all tangled up, but they have this whole story, and it's so much fun to enter their world. And you can still do this as they get older. It's just a little more refined as they get older. Okay, and then I'm going to basically share with you examples of things I've done and how it ties into education for life. I believe that creativity can be brought into a lot of the topics. I have no idea how it would be brought into math. It's not my thing. But I see how it could be brought into history and English. I know Shanti had assignments in a different school where they did things where a book report, write an article in the newspaper about the book report, or make a mobile about this book, or decorate, I remember she decorated a trash can with a book report. And the same thing with history assignments. And it goes a little deeper when they bring all the parts of themselves into it. And again, I don't know how you do it with science either. It's not quite my thing. But if you're not an art teacher, this isn't really just for art teachers. It's an approach of how to bring the kids into who they are. So I teach 5th through 12th, so I haven't taught younger kids for quite a while. I know that when they're younger, it's really tricky not to have them compare. So I asked Narani about hanging art up, I think at the market, and she immediately said, oh, I just send it straight home with them. And I realized how right that is, because when they're that young, you don't want them thinking that much about it. It's the flow of the energy of what they're doing. It's not, gee, I must be good because it's on the wall, and well, wait, it's different than that person's. It's almost thinking too much. So I start hanging up their art on the wall in the market, and I'm going to do it at the bank in town in November. 5th grade up. There's a change that happens in 5th grade that I've noticed. It's not all 5th graders, but where they're suddenly ready for more explanation, more of, oh, how do you draw a face? How do you draw an animal? I mean, they may be asking you that really young, and you don't want to, well, I can't tell you. You can show them, but you just say, well, I don't know. This is one way to do it, but you don't want to act like this is the way to do it. You know, it's just, you want to keep them creating and inventing and playing from inside. So, but then again, there'll be 5th graders that are completely not ready. So I'll still give them some. So I had a few in his class that were not ready. And then I had girls that just wanted to do more portraits and more portraits. And then we had enthusiasm off the charts for animals on canvas, which matches the feeling years. So we did animals on, they have 2 examples over there. They did so many. I think each child did 3 or 4. They just couldn't get enough. So I followed the enthusiasm, as I know that's what you all do too. And they would beg to do it. So a boy, for example, who was pretty hyper and a little out of control with his energy, really struggled with art. He had a really hard time until Animals on Canvas started. And then he was just, his energy completely changed. And he did a fox, and he did an owl, and a coyote, and a lion, and I don't know what else, a dog. The famous dog painting. I mean, the dog had so much life in its face. And I have a website I'll share later, because on the website is a section on teaching kids art, and it has a lot of examples of what I'm talking about from the kids. And let's see, what else? So anyway, with this boy that was very physical and wasn't ready for doing portraits, he thought it was the most boring thing in the world. So I would do different things sometimes with the boys, and I would try to feel it out. But I would have him sometimes, you know, years ago, I had him run to the tree and back several times before he was nice and tired, and then he'd be ready. Or if he just couldn't do it, I'd say, okay, I want you to go outside. Here's some sticks. I want you to collect branches, and I want you to make something out of it. And he loved it. And I didn't do it in a way of like, you're misbehaving. It was, okay, how about this? And then he'd be like, yeah. And he'd go out and create something. So anyway, that seemed to help the whole class. And so I start teaching portraits and a little bit more how to paint and acrylic in 5th and 6th grade. And again, it varies a lot. Some are ready younger, some aren't ready till 7th grade, some are never into it. No, just kidding. They seem to always get into it to some degree. And trying to approach it from, you know, there are no mistakes, and having a lot of room for process art, because what happens is this piece of paper becomes, you know, adults feel like this, oh my God, you know, what if I don't know how to do this, and we take this so seriously. So it's good to have cheap paper, so you don't take it seriously, and go, okay, this one doesn't count. I want you to, you know, whatever the assignment is. Okay, this one doesn't count either. And then they start to relax, and very young, they can break down their self-confidence with art. 2nd grade even, they've decided whether they're a good artist or not. So I erase all that when they come to my class. And even the very left brain high school boys that are into science and physics and math, you know, are starting to really shift and enjoy the creative process. So example, where is my paper? Here it is. Okay, so when kids first start, when they're really little, and I'm not going to talk about this much, but it's an important message. You know, when they're really, really little and they kind of look like this? And the reason they look like this is because to them, they're just a big thing of energy with these things coming out. So they're drawing their own perception. And if we explain, well, actually, you know, there's the head, there's the neck, and torso, and there's, you know, the head is 1/7 of the body, that's just not helpful information. And we're kind of like, it's none of our business, you know. They are in their world, and we're trying to cultivate and awaken their world. So as they get a little older, you know, I don't know if I even have this quite right, but, you know, something like this. You know, and they get a little older, a little more perception, And then they get a little older, and they go to this. And then where is that portrait? Oh, anyway, you get the idea. Then I start explaining the portrait in 7th grade, or 5th grade. And then I've noticed in this school, I don't know if it's true of all schools, it seems to be a difference between girls' art and boys' art. So another important topic, I'll share with you some assignments that I give as an example. Okay, so fantasy house, fantasy car, inside of a spaceship, make up an insect you've never seen before, invent a new kind of car, draw an underwater world from another planet. And I have many examples. And I'll give you a handout at the end of some of these examples. It's so much fun. You know, sometimes you can do a visualization at the beginning, going to the other planet on the spaceship, and you land, and there's a person walking a dog, and then you realize, wait, that's not a person. Wait, that's not a dog. And then they have to draw this alien walking the creature, and that kind of thing. So let's see. When I did this class with very few people a few weeks ago, we had families come, and they did it with each other, this communication art and drawing on the table. And there was a young girl, about 5 years old, and she would color, and then she'd dance, and then she'd color. And her mom was like, don't do that, don't do that. And I said, no, it's fine, it's fine. And she'd come from a school where in kindergarten, the tree had to be brown, and the leaves had to be green, which of course is tragic. So, and she was like, this is awesome. You know, she was just having a really good time. And so I don't know if you do that, but it seems like bringing in movement with art can be a really good way in the physical years. I think all years, but it can be a fun way. And also, if you have the paint in the middle of the table, I have this paint table over there. And everybody has, in this classroom you can do this. This is the classic or an ideal art room because you can't really mess anything up. It's already messed up. So they put paper on the walls, and then they'll go back and forth to the paint table, and so that creates movement because they have to go back and forth. And then the only rules can sometimes be, you know, don't put the black in the yellow, which can be hard, you know. And so they have to learn to really wash the brushes and how to dry them off between. And so let's see. Also, with the physical years, you could do, you know, more tangible kinesthetic with paper mache and clay, masks, you know, things that are more three-dimensional can be very helpful. I want to talk a little bit about process versus product. I think it's really important to do both, you know, and you want them to feel good about what they're doing. And you also want them to go, they're like, oh, I don't like it. And it's such a big deal. You go, so you don't like it. You know, it's like, so what? It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. It's like, so do you want to keep going? You know, no, I can't stand it. So sometimes I'll try to help them like, okay, well, if you could do anything and you could change this, what could you do? And if there's just no way around it, I go, okay, great, here's a new one. It's just not making a big deal out of it. Another thing about boys I wanted to mention for the fantasy house example was I had them draw, I've done this over the years, you know, if you could live in any house, what would you do? This is like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So the girls are doing rainbows and waterfalls and fairies and unicorns. And the boys have as a dungeon with like, you know, guys on a noose with like skulls and like, you know, blood coming out. You know, at the beginning I was kind of like, oh my God, you know. And then I realized over the years that it doesn't mean what it looks like, you know. I remember doing a hand thing last year. They had to draw a hand. Can I put a dagger in it? And I was like, yeah, really? So, you know, they're all doing daggers. And it's not about, I think there's not a lot of permission in their lives. You know, kids' lives can be more stressful than we realize. It doesn't mean they're a violent person. It doesn't mean anything negative. It's just a way, who knows what it means. These are really nice kids. And they'll get really into it, and then they'll just be like, oh yeah, and he's this, and they'll just talk about what the world is, and there's no good, bad, right, wrong. You know, I mean, if they're interrupting other people, that's another story. Or if their energy is going downhill and it's affecting people, that's different. But if they're really engaged, that's what we're looking for. And the same applies for when they get older. I had a student last year, an older child, who was phenomenal at art, and I kept giving her assignments and helping her. And she did some pretty intense art, and it was kind of And you go, oh, that's really good. But it was I don't know what word to use. Heavy. It was heavy duty art, like not something you put on your wall. So some art you put on the wall. Some art is really private. So, but she became so good, and when I first tried to change and help her do lighter art, it backfired. She felt like she was being shamed. She felt like she wasn't accepted for who she was. So I learned from that, and the next semester I just encouraged her to do whatever she needed to do, and she blossomed and shifted. And we had a really good relationship by the end. I mean, we did all along, but it shifted. So really tricky. It's very personal art. The other thing I do that I recommend if you do teach art is in 5th grade up, I give them art journals, which I have examples over there, 6th, 7th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And what it is I don't really understand it, but somehow it gives them confidence. They feel like if they have this thing where all their art from the whole year is in one place, they get to see their progress and all the things they've done. And it's interesting how much it helps. So somehow younger than that, they lose them or they scribble too much. And then there's Carianne, I'm done with my journal. And they feel this sense of accomplishment. And I go, great. Well, we'll have to get you a new one. And sometimes with the boys, they'll be like, oh, you got some few pages you could still use because they're moving fast through them. So we've been doing the journals for quite a few years now. And like I said, a lot of the examples are going to be on my website.
Question about the journals. Is that kind of on their own time that they do those journals? Or?
Good question. Both. We use them in class a lot for the assignment that I give, whatever that is, and for homework. So 7th grade up, they get homework every week. I don't give it for 5th and 6th unless they want to.
Like if they're working on shading or something like that?
No, usually the homework is, for 7th grade up, which is the other topic, is a lot more about self-discovery and about who are they? So I'll say, I want you to draw the corner of your room or your pet. It's all things about themselves. Or what's your favorite hobby? Or your friend's face? Or I don't even know. I can't remember them all right now. But I like to give them weekly assignments. The other thing I give to the older kids, since we're on the topic, is I give them, they have to pick out 10 inspirations every single week. And then they put them on their phone or their computer or whatever it is, and it can be something they see outside that they notice and take a picture of, or the internet. Pinterest has a zillion ideas, and what happens with that is they're constantly looking for what inspires them. It gets them looking, and they come back with all these ideas, and they also get a sense of what they like, and it helps me know what they like. So I'll be like, okay, well, let's work on this, and I'll individualize quite a bit with the older kids, especially 9th grade up. Okay, so on the topic of cooperation, a fun thing to do is group art, and there's an example over there. Sarah Brink taught that class years ago, but it's an underwater scene where everybody got to contribute to the underwater scene. And you can do, there's a dinosaur one here for younger kids. The ideas are endless. You could do another planet, you could do space. That's a fun one to do. It's kind of the afternoon. I can really feel that. Let's see. I think a lot of what we're looking for are they engaged? Because sometimes art can look really perfect and wonderful, but it's like when the child decides, they're a good artist, sometimes they can stiffen up a little bit because they're trying to produce good art. And often the art loses its aliveness. The reason we like children's art so much is because it's so alive. And it's just, that's what we're really looking for. Are they engaged or not? So if a child, like last year, one of the boys came in and he's like, I want to do an alien alphabet, and his enthusiasm was off the charts. And so I found a way to work it in, and then the boys did it. So following the enthusiasm, another example was some other boys wanted to do mazes. We're super into mazes. So we found a way to put that into the journals. And the journals are great, but sometimes I want them to paint big and get out of, because sometimes the girls get really small and they want everything to be perfect. And I'm like, so I want them to know how to do both. And I've had 2 girls that are also new to me this last year, and they want everything perfect. We all have that perfectionistic syndrome. At least I do. So I understand it. And what does perfect mean, you know? So getting them really in touch with themselves, and they've had some really big breakthroughs. It's really fun to see. So it's, yes, let's work on this and really make it as good as we can. But if they're getting too tight, then I'll have to loosen them up, bigger paper, and then they can go back to it. So that's part of what I do. Another fun one I wanted to share is Gremlins. I had this idea come to me on a drive, and then that movie came out. What's it called? Inside Out, yeah. But anyway, so the idea was to draw your inner gremlins. And, you know, oh yeah, I don't want to. You know, the I don't want to gremlin and the angry gremlin and the sad one and whatever they are, you know. And so they drew them, and then they named them. And instead of it giving it, you know, making them more moody, it makes them less moody because they can name it. And they had names to them. So I'll show you. I'll pass one around that's in here as an example. And the person who drew this, which happens to be my younger daughter, what happens is then she got really upset about a day later because her feelings were really hurt by a friend of hers. So then she was describing, I said, well, what's going on for you? Why don't we look at it? She's like, oh, yeah, Aaron's taken over. Aaron's taken over because Rufold, you know, she started naming them, you know, and I think the person's, and so she really got in touch with herself, and it was amazing. And within, like, I don't know, 10 minutes, and she was crying hard. Her energy really shifted, and she was able to name it and let it go. So I think this is fun for all ages. I don't think this, but somehow the feeling years, they're a little better at it. You get to the high school, and it's a little awkward somehow. They're so self-conscious. So another fun thing is writing prompts, and I do, oh yeah, sorry, pass around. Is writing prompts are fun for the older kids. You know, if I could do anything, I would. Sometimes I wish I could. You know, someday I would like to. A good friend is someone who, you know, my favorite colors are. And they'll write them, and then they can take those and integrate them into art. Or sometimes it's really private, and I really want to honor that. They'll talk about personal goals or write them all out. Then they'll fold it in a piece of paper and put it inside their journal. Because I want them to feel like they can write whatever they need to write without feeling like people are going to look through their journals later. We did, you know, New Year's goals that they put in multimedia. I do a lot of multimedia with collage and paint and words. I feel like that really opens up the creative flow. And then sometimes it's fun to get a picture. You take a photograph of the kid doing something that they dream of doing, whether it's being Superman or I don't know, surfing on surfboards. You take a picture of them doing the movement, and then you print them, cut them out, and then they make a collage and drawing with it, with themselves on the wave. So that's really fun. They love that. All ages love that one. And I really have an example of that with me right now. Let's see. So in terms of awakening enthusiasm and going through that, one thing I've been doing lately at the end of the year that I really enjoy, I used to do more, is I take the kids outside. That just shifts the energy. They come in, we go straight outside, and we stand in a circle, and I'll do some silly warm-up, like, okay, one time and then the next person talks, and then the next person. And we make up ridiculous, illogical, not even stories, I don't know what they are. The banana ends up flying to the moon, and all kinds of things. But it really shifts the energy, and they're laughing, and then we'll come in, and I'll do a demo of what we're doing, and then we'll go into the project. And then if we complete the project or in the middle of it, then we'll go back outside and, you know, for the 4 steps to share the inspiration. So that's really fun to do. And again, that's 5th grade up. I don't think it would work quite as well with the younger kids. I think it'd have to be slightly different. Another way to do that is to start painting on the wall. That really awakens enthusiasm. And also checking in with your body. Where are you? And it's really helping them get in touch before you start the art. Where are you inside yourself? And this applies to all ages. Okay, let's do art, let's paint. Okay, now where are you? Did it shift? And if they say yes, great, no, great. You know, there's no good, bad, right, wrong. It's really about allowing permission. Let's see here. Um, any questions right now before I continue?
How long is your art class? How long?
Today or in general?
In general.
We're going to wrap it up here.
No.
They're about an hour and a half for and then Balaramas, I think at 5th and 6th is like an hour 15. If they're super into it, we'd go an hour and a half. The older kids, an hour and a half, a week.
Once a week.
Yeah, and that's why I give them homework, because I want to keep it alive, and that's why I have them look for inspirations, because I don't want it to be a once a week thing. I want them to look at life creatively, because ultimately it's not for artists. It's about being solution oriented, and how do you solve something that's hard in your life? How do you, if you're a engineer or scientist or an inventor, you still have to think outside the box, and you still have to be able to resolve. And if they have no access to in here, it's a lot harder. They go out here. And I had a 9th grade boy last year who hadn't had me before. And at one point, I did this warm up with them. And I said, okay, I'm going to let you paint whatever you want. Or I can't remember. We led up steps to it. And he just panicked. There was, when they're little, it's so free. And then what happens? Something changes. And I thought, wow. I mean, so I guided them and ended up just giving them pointers. And that's why the inspirations help so much, because they have something they're excited about, and then they want to draw from that. Let's see. I've pretty much covered most of everything. Yeah, I think. Any other questions? I could give you more examples of what I do. Oh, imitating famous artists. I do that from 9th grade up. Sometimes 7th and 8th grade too. But I've got 9th grade example, 10th, 11th, and zillions more, but that's all I had available. And they love that. And that's a really fun thing you can do every year, because there's thousands of paintings, millions of paintings to choose from. And it can be from any time period, whatever it is they're drawn to. And sometimes I'll say, and I want you to change it a little bit. So, because it's too boring to just imitate it, I'll have them change it. So one girl had a Klimt painting that was a profile, and then she had a huge bubble from a piece of gum coming out of her mouth, just to shake it up a little bit. And the other thing is I have them write a biography about the artist, which really helps them tap into who they're interested in. They get to choose the artist, but they write it in the form of I. I did this, and then they said it was really powerful, because they really had a deeper feeling of the artist. When you read them, you're in tears. It's so very powerful. And for those that are more intellectual as they're older, one boy last year really loves to write, so I would help him bring his writing into the art. And really, he's longing for depth. So how can his art feel more meaningful? So we worked with that with words. And so the example up there, that was done by a 9th grader, and that includes a song is hidden in there, a quote that they liked, 3 qualities, and I can't remember what else. But and part of the assignment was multimedia. There had to be paint, a collage, and I think there's pen or something in there. Anyway, so that's what I do a lot with the older girls. They really get into faces and who am I. So we do a lot of portraits and a lot of art. I think you'll understand more if you look at the journal examples. And any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are they all working on the same kind of thing at the same time? Or
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It really depends. Like last year, the boys usually wanted to do something different. So I always had so many backup plans. Like, okay, we're going to do the alien spaceship today, and the girls, I had to follow what was real. Because so yes and no. Yeah, sometimes it would, like the canvases with the animals was just, we did that for weeks and weeks, everybody.
What do you do with the kid who writes for 3 minutes and says, okay, I'm done?
Yeah, I have a lot of that, or even the art. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. I go, great. All right, here's another piece of paper. I want you to do it. Okay, I'm done. Okay, that's really great. Now I want you to, I want you to take it a little deeper. How about I just come up, I follow what's the flow. Okay, what do you need now? Keep the energy moving. Okay, yeah, it's a good question. Okay, well then how about you do this? Okay, then I'm going to have you draw while we're waiting for everybody else, and you need to draw this. It's just constantly keeping the energy moving and flowing. Yeah, good question. That happens a lot.
Do you get a lot of they're copying me, or that was my idea, stole my idea?
There's one girl that was just loved to copy. And so I was trying to help her find who is she, Yeah, that would come up. And sometimes I'd say, like, you can get ideas from other people. Like, who cares? So what? Because that's how we learn. You know, that's how I learn a lot. I get a lot of ideas from Pinterest, from my art classes, or when I'm going to do a painting. I don't know where to start sometimes. But if it's really coming from, I have no idea who I am and I don't know what to do, I try to help them individually, because it can be kind of hard on the other students if it's extreme. Yeah.
Well, with my little guys that comes in along, and so we just work on just ask, can I copy this? And
Yeah.
and then because they would feel like it was stolen from them. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
copy because it was like something that they didn't like it.
Yeah.
But if I say to you, I really like what you're doing, can I copy it? Or can I use your idea?
Yeah.
Because it was more of that, can I use your idea? And then they would
Yeah.
change it.
Right.
And sometimes someone would say, no, I want to be the only one.
Yeah.
But more often than not, they would say, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just giving permission.
Right, and then they take it and they make it their own. It's like a starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that, because I also make them aware, my second to fourth graders, that they're, even if you take that idea that you like, you're going to transform it into
Yes,
something
it's like
different.
take it and now move over here and work on
It
it.
will never be exactly the same. And some people don't understand. I said, you know, you may not like it, but she's like paying you a big compliment
Yeah.
because she's been inspired by
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I try the person who feel kind of defrauded
Right.
by something, taken away.
Right.
Saying, you know, you've been a source of inspiration for your friend.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't like it, you know, you have the power to say.
Yeah, but I think it's good they have a chance to say no. It's probably doesn't happen much, but yeah.
But it just was a big shift.
Yeah.
When they started asking,
Yes.
can I use your idea? Can I copy
Right.
that part?
Right.
And then
Right.
just, oh, sure.
Right,
It's
exactly.
usually sure.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
on that topic, I don't know if this applies as much to younger children or if you've seen this in older children, but in my creative process, if somebody's watching me do something, that makes me feel self-conscious.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
that's a reaction to that feeling of like, I don't want you to copy it. Sometimes it's like I feel.
Well,
like I'm
no,
trying to-
kids don't like to be watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I really honor that. No, let's not watch. It's, leave them alone.
Because it is so personal, like you
It
were saying
is.
before. It can be a really personal process, and you can
Yes.
like you start to come out of that.
We're trying to make it
state.
so safe that in their very personal process, they
Right.
feel safe to create whatever they need to create. And it's incredible how much joy it brings them and how much they continue doing the journals at home because they love it so much. And even the boys who are left brain really got into it. And because I believe everybody's creative. It's just who we are. But it doesn't mean we're all going to be doing paintings. But with music and the arts and drama and all of that, it's so rich and valuable of self-discovery of who we are.
You said there's a website?
Well, I have a website, and on my website, there's a section called Teaching Kids Art. And on that part, there's a lot of examples that are fun to look at. So it's called CarianneJames.com, and it's CarianNE.com. Oh, James, yeah, James, James. Yeah.
You know, some of
Carianne James.
teaching art is also teaching parents
Yes.
to have a different,
Yes.
like, mindset about
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
because they always want to know what their child does.
Yeah, I
Always.
think parents really have this thing. They want to make sure their child's a good artist, and it's
Yeah.
so it's a kind of a combination of. I talk to the parents. I say you're not going to be getting a lot of things sent home because it's going to be in the journals, and I just tell them ahead of time. And we do. I would tell them, we're doing process art and we're doing some products, so not everything's going to be about what it looks like. I would just state it and be clear, because it's kind of becoming more popular, the process more understood than it used to be, and. Then the kid gets caught in the parents' approval, and it's just you're kind of caught in the middle. So I would just state it as clearly as you could.
I still put their art up, but I put it up in a way where their names aren't on it, and it's more of a collaborative presentation.
Yeah.
Or a mural. So everybody is working.
And everyone's honored. This was at the market, so it was a little more official. And littler kids aren't ready for that. It's too much. Yeah. 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 I think you just have to follow what's working and what feels right. And yeah. So, Any other
What
questions?
inspired these up here? They're beautiful.
Oh gosh, those are mine. Yeah. Those are from quite a few years ago, and I don't see them anymore. Yeah, so that's on wood, which I sometimes do with the kids, and that's kind of some of the style I try to teach, where there's words, there's layers. I really believe in layers of art with acrylic. So much fun because you can't make a mistake. If you don't like it, okay, how can we change it? Watercolor has a whole different feel. I do all of them, but I do have a special love for acrylic because there really aren't mistakes, and you can just keep going, and it's fun. And if they don't like it, it's kind of fun. Like, great, you don't like it, so you have nothing to worry about. You can't lose. What can you do now? You know, and they'll take their fingers. I teach them like using the fingers, using the brushes, little brushes. I mean, I don't. I have too many things to share but you get the idea, right? So.
You
Yeah.
talked about, at a workshop I was at with you, you talked about using things like bubble wrap and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
patterns on paper towels.
Yeah.
And things like that, so putting down.
Yes,
their
I'm really into
paint.
texture, and bubble wrap makes great. You know, you put a little paint on it, and you do that, and then it takes up the paint, and then you do, you know, just, and really fun to teach. I think kids of all ages would like that. And it's sponges and paper towel. I've gotten into all these new ones now, and stamps, and I think we're getting to wrap up time. Okay, well, any last questions before we wrap it up? Okay.